Right now, deep beneath Manhattan, there are 6,000 tons of gold bars. Stack them together, and you'd have a cube about 20 feet on each side, worth over $600 billion. They sit in a vault 80 feet below street level, guarded by a 90-ton steel cylinder that serves as a door. Here's what's weird. Every economist will tell you gold is a barbarous relic. It pays no dividends. It generates no cash flow. Warren Buffett famously said that aliens watching us dig gold out of the ground only to bury it again in bank vaults would scratch their heads in confusion. And yet, when COVID hit in 2020, gold shot past $2,000 an ounce. By 2024, it crossed $5,000. Central banks that spent decades calling gold obsolete quietly became the biggest buyers, purchasing over 1,000 tons annually. China, Russia, Turkey, India, all hoarding the very asset their economists dismissed. So what do they know that they're not saying? Today, we're diving into 5,000 years of monetary history to answer one question. Why has gold survived every empire, every currency collapse, and every financial innovation humanity has ever created? The metal that doesn't die. Let's start with something the ancient Egyptians understood that we've forgotten. Permanence. In 1922, archaeologists opened King Tut's tomb sealed for over 3,000 years. Inside, they found a death mask made of gold. When they brushed away the dust, the metal gleamed as if it had been crafted yesterday. No tarnish, no corrosion. Absolutely pristine. The Egyptians called gold the flesh of the gods because it was the only substance that seemed to defy time itself. You could bury it for 3 millennia, and it would emerge unchanged. That's not mythology, that's chemistry. Gold doesn't react with oxygen. It doesn't rust, decay, or decompose. By 2600 BC, gold was already functioning as a medium of exchange in international trade. The Egyptian word nub meant gold. Nubia meant the land of gold. Trade networks from Egypt to Mesopotamia accepted gold not because some authority decreed it, but because it was reliable across generations. But here's the crucial question. How did gold evolve from treasure into actual money? Around 630 BC, in the ancient kingdom of Lydia, what's now Western Turkey, King Croesus did something revolutionary. He took electrum, a natural mixture of gold and silver, and stamped his royal seal on it. This wasn't just about pretty coins. That stamp was a promise. This coin weighs what I say it weighs. The purity is what I claim it is. I stake my reputation on it. Suddenly, merchants from Greece to Phoenicia to Mesopotamia didn't need to weigh every transaction. They didn't need to test every piece. The royal seal meant centuries of consistent weight and honest purity. Trust became portable. This is the real innovation. Stamping the ruler's image transformed metal into a promise. And promises, when kept across generations, become their own kind of infrastructure. Fast forward to 312 AD. Constantine the Great introduces the solidus, 4.5 grams, 99% pure gold. For the next 700 years, 7 centuries, the Byzantine Empire maintained that standard without cheating. Think about that. The empire fought wars, built monuments, funded massive bureaucracies, dealt with plagues and invasions. Yet generation after generation, emperor after emperor, they resisted the temptation to debase their currency. The solidus became the dollar of the Middle Ages. Russian traders accepted it. Persian merchants trusted it. Sri Lankan importers used it. Why? Because the Byzantine state had proven over and over and over that the weight stamped on the coin matched the metal in your hand. But in 1028, Emperor Romanus III took the throne, and the debasement began. By 1078, just 50 years later, The coin that had maintained 9% purity for 7 centuries now contained only 33% gold. Italian merchants in Constantinople's markets refused the new coins. They demanded the old solidus, full weight, honest metal. When the emperor offered new coins, merchants chose old metal over imperial authority. They revealed what they really trusted when their own wealth was at risk. 700 years of credibility destroyed in half a century of expediency. Here's the lesson. Trust takes generations to build, and it can be destroyed in less than a lifetime. Jump to 17th century. Isaac Newton, yes, that Isaac Newton was serving as master of the mint in Britain. He made some calculations that accidentally pegged British sterling to gold. What started as a technical adjustment hardened into 2 centuries of monetary policy. By 1900, every major nation except China was on the gold standard. The theory was elegant. Currency defined as a fixed amount of gold. Central banks required to exchange paper for metal on demand. Balance of payments deficits would correct themselves through gold flows. Then came the Great Depression. In 1925, Britain tried to restore gold convertibility at pre-war rates. The currency was overvalued. The result? Persistent unemployment, economic pain, political instability. By 1931, Britain abandoned gold. The choice became clear: maintain the metal standard or manage the economy. Governments chose their economies. But in 1944, at Bretton Woods, the world tried again. This time with a twist. The dollar would be pegged to gold at 35 per ounce. Other currencies would peg to the dollar. It was a gold standard, but mediated through American currency. The system worked brilliantly for a while. Then came the 1960s. The U.S. was running deficits. Dollars were accumulating in foreign central banks. And by the early 1960s, those foreign dollar holdings exceeded American gold reserves. It was mathematically impossible to honor conversion if everyone showed up at once. In 1965, Charles de Gaulle publicly announced France would redeem dollars for gold, sending a signal to the world about the dollar's vulnerability. Then came August 11, 1971. Britain requested $3 billion in gold from Fort Knox. That weekend, Nixon and his advisors huddled at Camp David. On Sunday evening, August 15th, Nixon announced the temporary suspension of dollar-gold convertibility. That temporary suspension lasted forever. The era of gold-backed currency was over. Money became pure fiat valuable because governments declared it legal tender, not because you could exchange it for anything. So gold was done, right? Just a barbarous relic? Not quite. In 1971, gold was $35 per ounce. By January 1980, it hit $850, a 24-fold increase. The 1970s brought stagflation, OPEC oil shocks, inflation, and unemployment rising simultaneously. Keynesian models said this was impossible. But gold didn't care about models. Then Paul Volcker became Federal Reserve Chairman in 1979. He raised interest rates to 20%, a deliberate recession to crush inflation, and gold fell from $850 to $300 by 1982. The lesson? Gold hedges inflation when central banks won't or can't raise rates. But when monetary discipline returns, gold retreats. It's not about inflation itself. It's about policy credibility. Fast forward to 2008. Financial crisis. Gold surges toward 2,000. COVID in 2020. Gold passes 2,000ers for the first time as central banks print trillions. By 2024, it's above $5,000. And here's the irony. From 2001 to 2008, Western central banks were net sellers of gold, calling it a barbarous relic. After the 2008 crisis, they changed their tune. Emerging market central banks became massive buyers. Russia, China, Turkey, India, accumulating reserves while Western economists still declared gold obsolete. In 2023 and 2024, central banks purchased approximately 1,000 tons per year. They denounce gold in their public statements. They accumulate it in their vault records. The real question: so what's really going on here? Today, central banks hold 40,000 tons of gold, 20% of all the gold ever mined in human history. That includes $682 billion in Fort Knox and $93 billion in European reserves. All the gold ever mined would fit in a cube just 72 feet on each side. A surprisingly small volume for something that has shaped 5 millennia of economic history. Gold isn't money anymore. We abandoned the gold standard. Currencies float freely. Money has value through market forces and central bank credibility, not convertibility into metal. And yet, when crisis hits, people buy gold. When inflation returns, investors pour into gold. ETFs. U.S. gold ETFs alone hold 2,019 tons worth $280 billion. When geopolitical tensions rise, central banks quietly add to reserves despite claiming gold is obsolete. Compare the track records. Paper currencies, 50 years of fiat experimentation. The British pound lost gold backing in 1931. Bretton Woods lasted 27 years. Meanwhile, the Byzantine solidus maintained honesty for 700 years. Florentine coins were trusted for 300 years. Gold survived not because it has some magical intrinsic value that justifies its price. It doesn't. Gold survived because societies built credibility around it. Generation after generation, merchants examined coins and asked one simple question: does this weigh what it claims? When that question was answered honestly across centuries, the metal became more than metal. It became infrastructure of belief itself. So here we are in 2026, central banks accumulating gold while calling it a relic. Investors fleeing to gold when faith in other systems wavers. The metal that does not tarnish, does not decay, outlasting every empire that ever stamped its image on a coin. This isn't mysticism. This is recognition that trust built through thousands of years of institutional performance creates its own kind of permanence. It's the difference between 50 years of promises and 5,000 years of delivery. Gold's 5,000-year journey from Egyptian tombs to Manhattan vaults reveals something profound about human nature. We can examine our systems, question our assumptions, and understand our choices. But when everything else fails, we reach for what our ancestors reached for. The metal that survived 5,000 years hasn't changed. We have. The question is whether our new promises will last as long as the old ones. Thanks for watching. If this made you think differently about money and trust, hit that subscribe button. And let me know in the comments, do you think gold will still matter in another 5,000 years?